Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, from time to time we talk on different subjects and different topics. Today also we are going to talk on a very fresh, a very new topic, and the topic is the Gupta period. Dear friends, we have ample of time today to get the in-depth knowledge on the Gupta period, and for this we have again with us in our studios Dr. Shankar Kumar. Dr. Shankar Kumar is Assistant Professor in Department of History, Hindu College, University of Delhi. So dear friends, let's welcome our guest Dr. Shankar Kumar and let's try to understand more about the Gupta period. Hello sir, welcome to the EDICET lecture.
Thank you, Geetika. Good afternoon, viewers. Gupta period in historical sense constitutes a continuum to our earlier interactions that I had with you on say Mauryan period and the post-Mauryan period. So in chronological terms, broadly it is agreed upon that 320 AD, or as it is called now, Common Era, is the period when Gupta dynasty as such began, and the imperial pursuit of the Gupta rulers actually unfolded from here on. There are some claims to the fact that there were a couple of other rulers prior to this period. So it could be Sri Gupta and Ghatotkacha or Kacha, and subsequent to that we have the imperial line of the Gupta rulers. And in fact, the Gupta rule continues till about the middle of the 6th century, and it is around this time that we start getting the evidence of some kind of a fundamental change towards the end of the Gupta rule, or in fact, to be more precise, in the post-Gupta period, we get to sense a different kind of society, economy, religiosity, and that probably heralds what we call the Middle Age or the medieval times in Indian history. It is also spoken of that this was triggered by a development in economy, polity and society, which is best captured probably through the concept of feudalism. So it is feudal tendencies which got unleashed in the post-Gupta period, and that is the overall perspective in which the imperial Guptas or the Gupta rule is actually situated in Indian historiography. If you look at the nationalist phase of history writing, that is around the time when India was engaged in struggle for independence from the colonial control under the British, in the initial decades of 20th century, we find that Gupta period is somewhat chosen as the period which is almost celebrated by the nationalist writers, particularly native nationalist writers, because they were also trying to pose the case of the Guptas as a counter to the British claim that Indians can't rule themselves, and presence of the British administrators is an absolute requirement for Indians to be governed under one political setup. So the case of the Guptas actually came very handy to nationalist historians who kind of offered it as an example where in the ancient times we have the evidence of an empire which covered almost the entire stretch of the subcontinent. Of course, there are portions down south in the peninsular India which were not part of Gupta Empire. Similarly, if we talk of then India, the then British India, then some parts of the northwestern part of the subcontinent were also not part under the Guptas, particularly the area bordering Afghanistan and so forth. So, this is the extent, this is the pan-Indian presence of this empire, which kind of gave a very good example for the nationalist historians to offer to the British or to the colonial historiography, in which Indians were not projected in a favorable light. Indians were projected in a fashion where it was projected that they always required some foreign power to rule over themselves if we go by the sheer dimension of the subcontinent. So, that is one where the initial fascination of the nationalist historians for the Gupta period actually gets exhibited. Also true is the fact that quite a few details about the Mauryan period, which was somewhat more extensive in terms of territorial extent than the Guptas, was still the contours of the Mauryan period were still being made around this time, because we get to know that Kautilya's Arthashastra was discovered only as late as the first decade of 20th century, and of course Mauryan inscription, Ashokan inscription was known, but the identification of Devanampiya Sipiyadasi Raja, as mentioned in Ashokan inscription, with the king Ashok happened quite late. And quite a few aspects of the Mauryan rule was still being made around this time, and Guptas offered a very good, well documented kind of example, because in the Gupta period, or the period which is covered under the Gupta rule, we have almost you can say flourishing literature that we get in Sanskrit and also in other languages, but quite a few aspirations, quite a few lifestyle of the Indians were actually captured around this time. The gods and goddesses who were popular in 20th century and continue to be popular even today in the Hindu pantheon of gods and goddesses are the gods who are actually born of this period. They are the ones who appear very frequently in the Gupta period, who were somewhat absent in the Vedic times, and that was yet another factor of fascination for this period. Similarly, quite a few religious traits and tendencies, for instance, the way we worship gods, or the bhakti form of worshipping, where instead of sacrificing through havan and so forth, as was the case during the Vedic times, or meditation and seeking knowledge, as was the norm during the Upanishadic period, that is 6th century BC onwards. Quite unlike that, by the time we reach Gupta period, we find the mode of worshipping getting transformed in Brahmanical way of worshipping, and the present day Hinduism, as we understand it, actually in terms of temples, in terms of gods, in terms of modes of worshipping, they all got probably instituted during the Gupta period. So, they are all mentioned in the Puranas, and we all know that Puranas actually are the product of the same period that we are talking of, that is Gupta times. Broadly, this is the time when Puranas also started getting written, and the gods and goddesses mentioned in the Puranas are symptomatic of yet another process of inclusion or syncretization that we shall talk about subsequently in the lecture. So, this was the initial reason for fascination with Gupta period, and very soon, on account of the iconic works of Kalidas with great degree of sophistication in the content and also presentation, the way his drama was presented, the way his other works, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, Meghadutam, etc., Ritu Sangar, etc., although there is some kind of argument amongst Sanskritists and people interested in literature that Kalidas's works also show some kind of a growth from Ritu Sangar to Meghadutam or Abhigyan Shakuntalam and so forth. But keeping that aside, what is indisputably true is that Kalidas sits at the pinnacle of Sanskrit literature, and it is his work which goes on to set the parameters of sophistication in Sanskrit language and literature in different genre of Sanskrit literature. And the kind of language, the way of presentation and other techniques that Kalidas used accords some sense of classicism to this period, to his works, and therefore this period, Gupta period, is also coterminous with the classical age of Sanskrit literature. And we all know that the Brahmanical literature essentially were written in Sanskrit language, and also true is the fact that it is not only confined to the realm of literature or drama or poetry, but even beyond that, and there are quite a few others apart from Kalidas, and we all know of quite a few drama and literature which actually allows us to recreate with greater degree of exactitude some of the past events. For instance, there are works belonging to the Gupta period, classic Sanskrit works belonging to Gupta period, which inform us about the Shunga affairs, or Pushyamitra Shunga and his times. Similarly, there are works which inform us about the conflict between Nandas and the Mauryas, Chandragupta Maurya, the way he came to power and so forth. So these are the works which were separated from the Gupta period by a good 500, 600 years, and yet they constitute the theme for this Sanskrit literature, which was weaved and created in the Gupta period, and quite justifiably so, that in the realm of literature it certainly did represent classical age. And apart from literature, we also get to see other forms of works, like we have works in astronomy, we have works in medicine, we have works in mathematics, which are attributed to this period. And we all know of Aryabhatta and the fact that Shunya, or zero, concept of zero, was born nowhere else but in India, and it is from here that it traveled to Arab, and from there it got transmitted to the Europe in general. Europeans initially thought that the numerals that they use, 1 to 9 to plus 0, is an Arab contribution, but very soon they got to know that Arabs themselves got it from nowhere else but in India. So these attainments in the realm of knowledge and culture and literature, of course, accords some kind of significance to this period. Also true in the realm of sculpturing and architecture. We get to see temples coming up in a big way, and magnificent temples which are very ornate and which have idols placed in the Garbha Grih of the temple. So, the Nagar style in north actually got instituted around this time, and very soon we had other variants of temple architecture traveling to different parts of India, South India and also Odisha area. So, other architectural techniques very soon developed and spread to other parts of Indian subcontinent, but this is the time when we do see these new aspects of history getting added to whatever we had in past, and there were quite a few changes in relation to literary norms, in relation to the way we worship, in relation to the architecture of temples. In fact, several concepts also which are attributed to different we can say strands of religiosity in Indian tradition, say Buddhism, Jainism, the notion of previous birth as enunciated in the concept of bodhisattvas and so forth. They were all absorbed in the Brahmanical tradition and were presented as a pantheon of gods and goddesses in Brahmanical tradition, which are very well documented in Puranas. Of course, they don't explicitly say so, but this is what the historians have inferred out of the details given in Puranic literature, and when we see that in comparison to the earlier times. So, in that sense, what we find is that Gupta period is a very critical period in terms of not only historiography, but also its pertinence to the times when India was engaged in its struggle for independence, and it provided a space for some kind of an instrumental use of history, where pan-Indian empire with exemplary attainments in cultural and scientific fields could be exhibited to the colonial powers, to the British, and it gave tremendous faith and strength and confidence to the freedom fighters as well, that India has done it in the past, and if the colonial yoke is done away with, there are ways and means through which India can seek inspiration from its own past and flourish in future. So, in that way we find there is the nationalist sentiment hinged around the Gupta period, and therefore there was this kind of a projection of the Gupta period as the golden period. But this concept of the golden period, which is hinged around the Gupta period, of course has quite a few negatives as well, in the sense that the impression that we get out of our reading into, say, culture, literature, architecture, idols, gods, goddesses and so forth, that is somewhat carried over to other forms, say, of administration, economy, society and so forth. So, there is some kind of a gloss over that is happening as a result of one's fascination with cultural and intellectual attainments of this period. This has been highlighted by several historians subsequent to our attainment of independence, say in the 60s, 70s, etc. You have D. N. Jha's works, you have R. S. Sharma's work, which speak of, which somewhat critiques this concept of golden age, and they speak of the advent of feudalism from the post-Gupta period onwards. But the point is that if you look at the cultural aspect of the attainments of Gupta period, And since in historiography, at that point of time, around the time that we are talking of, the focus was not on economic and social studies. Therefore, this kind of an image of the Guptas was made. Subsequent to this, of course, since the research focused more on economic and social aspects, quite a few inadequacies of this construct were brought to fore, and that is how this concept was built and also critiqued. Moving beyond this, if we just talk of the political coverage of this period, then we have, apart from the two initial rulers, that is Sri Gupta and Ghatotkaч, we also have Chandragupta II, who appeared to be extremely formidable and one can say a great strategist, in the sense that he was the one who started using Maharaja Dhiraj title for the Guptas, and it is his reign which is reckoned with the Gupta era as such, 319 or 320 AD. And he was the one who resorted to several means to consolidate power for a newly emerging dynasty, that is that of the Guptas. Of course, there is a lot of debate related to, you can read S.R. Goyal's work, Imperial Guptas, which is a fascinating work and which has taken up in great detail the issue of the origin of the Guptas, and it is somewhat inconclusive in the sense whether the Gupta rulers originally came from Magadha area, that is Patliputra area, or the eastern Uttar Pradesh area. So, in present terms, but it does not go beyond this. So, in all probability, the origin of the Guptas is located somewhere around the area bound by Patliputra, that is Patna on one side, and the eastern Uttar Pradesh. So, this is the nuclear area where the power of the Guptas actually originated, and very soon they somewhat conquered or assimilated, or through different means they got the adjoining areas under their command, even resorting to matrimonial alliances. And we do have evidence of the Licchavi princess getting married to the Gupta ruler, and that getting celebrated through issuing of coins, and they are symptomatic of two power groups in the region coming together, and that must have given a lot of leverage to the Guptas in terms of leveraging power. And so, this is how initially it began. And of course, military conquest was yet another means. And in terms of military conquest, we have the Allahabad Prashasti or Allahabad pillar inscription, which is about Samudragupta's war campaigns, not only in North but also in South India. This inscription was written by Harishen, and who himself was a very accomplished writer, and the language is an example of very good Sanskrit by itself. So, the epigraph itself is a very good specimen of Sanskrit language. And in this inscription, and by the way, interestingly, one more fact that the students can take note of is that this Allahabad pillar inscription, which is attributed to Samudragupta, this pillar actually is an Ashokan pillar. It's an Ashokan edict, and of course located in Allahabad, and one doesn't know whether the Guptas were aware of the fact that once upon a time a king called Ashok ruled over this area, and it is on the same pillar that they are getting it engraved, their own inscriptions, because there is no direct reference as such. But one thing is clear, that Samudragupta chose or picked up this very object to write on, meant that whether the people in the Gupta period had some memory of Ashok or not, but one thing is very clear, that they did regard that this particular pillar is of extraordinary significance and importance, and it did connote power to them, and that's why he got it engraved on the same inscription, which is Ashokan inscription. Now, in this Prayag Prashasti, as it is also called, because Prayag stands for the place's name, and Prashasti is because it is an eulogical account of Samudragupta's campaign. And interestingly, from the point of view of military conquest and also nature of the administration, which was somewhat different from the times that we are familiar with, that is the Mauryas, in the sense that Samudragupta talks of his military campaigns in three phases. One, he ventures around the Aryavrat area, that is north of the Vindhya mountains, and he conquers three kings, or he conquers three kingdoms, and then he goes to South India, that is south of the Vindhyas, and here the term that he uses is not only of conquest. So, he defeats these kings in South India, that is Deccan area and so forth, not the southern tip, but you can say central and the Deccan area. So, he defeats these kings, but he also lets them free. So, moksha is the word used in this sense, and he reinstates them. And in return, probably he extracts some kind of a sovereign status for himself, and therefore, when we talk of Gupta Empire as such, what we should not be doing is that we should not think of uniform kind of centralized polity as probably it was very much there in Aryavrat area, that is north of the Vindhyas. The same perhaps was not the case down south in the Deccan area. Because here the rule is not direct from the Gupta capital, but here the conquered kings, the vanquished kings are reinstated, and they are maybe offering some kind of a presentation to Samudragupta and maybe subsequent Gupta rulers. So, there is this sense of decentralized polity, or you can say plural political norms existing within the empire itself, and certainly it cannot be understood as a replica of the overtly centralized and bureaucratized Mauryan empire, although we have seen in our discussion earlier as well that even for the case of the Mauryas, the recent viewpoints do talk of the elements of decentralization or the problems with the issue of centralization or bureaucratization even during the Mauryan period. So, there is a fair degree of variation in terms of political norms, political structure, and even political intent so far as the Gupta empire is concerned. Now, having discussed this, let's try and understand the economic and social threads of the Gupta period. And as I have spoken to you earlier as well, that any good discussion on the trajectory of economic and social developments cannot happen if we compartmentalize a particular period on account of the presence of a political dynasty, as if presence of a political dynasty transforms the entire economic activities and social norms, etc. Such existence of such polities find it difficult to do it even in the present times, with so much of control and so much of means and resources available to the state. So just think of the ancient times. It was probably not possible for a political dynasty to certainly bring about transformation in the realm of economy and society merely on account of the presence of a political family or a political dynasty as such. So, why I am discussing this is because we should not be losing sight of the continuum of economic and social threads that we have spoken of for the Mauryan and post-Mauryan period. So, if we look at the economic aspect of the Gupta period, of course, this is the period when agriculture is making advancements in parts of the subcontinent where actually it was not very intensive in the earlier period. So, this is again a continuum from the Mauryan as well as post-Mauryan period, and Gupta period, since the label is political, we usually lose sight of these aspects. So, there is advancement of the agrarian frontiers within the subcontinent across the Vindhyas, and different regions of the subcontinent are increasingly becoming laden with more capacity to generate continuous surplus, which can throw or which can give rise to its own ruling stratum. So, once there is economic surplus on account of intensive trade, or for that matter even trade and commerce or market and so forth, use of currency, exchange, etc. Therefore, that leads to accentuation of social differentiation in society, and once that happens in an erstwhile egalitarian kind of a setup, which usually was the case in the tribal chieftainships. So, the areas where agriculture started making inroads in a more intense ways, and suppose earlier it was a tribal kind of political structure or social structure over there, then very soon, on account of its capacity to generate surplus, the process of social differentiation got accentuated, and a ruling stratum emerged from these areas, which could, by resorting to different means, not only military but also ideological tools. It could be the Varna Vyavastha or the caste system as such, or the Brahmanical norms. So, by latching on to this, some kind of a second state formation appeared in these areas as well. And in that sense, the dynamics of economy and society during the Gupta period is also important, because it is through the same dynamics that the thesis of feudalism is also linked, and there can be different viewpoints, and there are different viewpoints related to advent of feudalism in Indian historiography or history in general, but that we shall be talking about maybe in my subsequent interaction with you. For the Gupta period, what we need to understand in terms of agriculture is that there is advancement of the agrarian frontiers within the subcontinent. More and more areas are getting brought under the vortex of agriculture and cultivation. New crops are being sown in areas where there was no intensive agriculture before. Irrigation methods are getting intensified. Also true is the fact that the other component of the economy, which is a characteristic feature of the post-modern period, and that is international trade, Roman trade, maritime trade, as well as the overland trade. So that also continues, and it penetrates into the deeper and inner parts of the subcontinent. The Silk Route connection is very often spoken of in this context of postmodern times, and that continued even in the Gupta period. So, although with the going away of the Kushana rule, there was no kind of a political continuum to the northwest areas or the Central Asian areas, but the routes did cross the Gupta dominion as well, and there could be little bit of benefit accruing to Indians as well around this time on account of their engagement with the Silk Route. The maritime trade with the west, that is across the Arabian Sea, through the Red Sea up to Europe, did continue at least up to the fall of the Roman Empire around the beginning of the Gupta period, around in the same century. So, there is that connection, and therefore, Gupta rulers are also credited to have issued maximum number of gold coins, and gold coins, as we all know, is symptomatic of high value transactions, and high value transactions would also presuppose long distance trade or trade in luxury items, precious items, apart from, of course, the everyday item and regular exchange that was already going on. So, Gupta period is at least the initial part of the Gupta period, the initial couple of centuries of the Gupta rule did coincide with economic prosperity in terms of trade, agriculture, and so forth. But by the time we reach the end of the Gupta period, the economy starts showing some bit of a stress, and that stress, a part of it, as proposed by R. S. Sharma, is also on account of the rupture of long distance trade that we just spoke of, on account of the fall of the Roman Empire. And it is not only on account of the fall of the Roman Empire that the economy was coming under stress, but also as in details we would be discussing it maybe in my next interaction with you, which would be about the post-Gupta period. It could also trigger from some internal causes, internal problems, and R. S. Sharma speaks of the Kali age crisis. And Kali age crisis, historians speak about it with reference to the Puranic references of Kali age, where everything is described as normless, and where it is said that the dharma has been broken, and probably the state was finding it extremely difficult to collect taxes the way it traditionally did in past. And this recalcitrant attitude of the lower orders so far as not paying taxes or difficulty in paying taxes are concerned is articulated in literature through the metaphor of Kali age. So, there is a set of historians which argues that it should not be understood in terms of some kind of a real crisis of taxation or collection of revenue, but it should merely be understood as a literary metaphor, and Kali age is nothing more than a literary metaphor. But we have another set of historians who read more into such repeated references, and they say that such references are not to be encountered in earlier period or period prior to the Gupta period. So, the fact that it starts appearing around this time is symptomatic of something new at a deeper level in society and economy. So, towards the end of the Gupta period, we have such elements of stress, economy coming under stress, and it had its ramification in several other forms as well. For instance, rupture of long distance trade and inability of the state to collect enough revenue so that it can even pay the salaries to its officials, state officials, led to a kind of a situation where there was paucity of coins, there was there's a liquidity crisis in modern parlance. This is the word that we use, and in the situation where the state was not having enough cash to pay regular salaries to its officials, meant that the state had to resort to some other ways, and that way probably was the practice of making land grants. Now, land grants as a practice is traditionally ordained in Indian history, and it's not as if land grants were not made during the Mauryan period or it was not made during the post-Mauryan period. Satvahans are there is epigraphic evidence of Satavahan kings making land grants, but the important thing is that these land grants, as per Indian tradition and practice, was were made only to the religious bodies. So, the donis invariably used to be either a set of Brahmins or a particular Buddhist organization or monastery or Jain bhikshus and so forth. So, land grants were made to religious bodies, and it was within the religiosity that we think of the practice of land grants in Indian history. But from the post-Gupta period, we start getting evidence of land being granted even to state officials or secular agencies. Now, the practice of giving land grants to state officials is understood by R. Sharma in terms of giving away of something in lieu of salary. So, since the state is not able to pay the salary, therefore, they are parceling out their sovereignty itself. And once a land is granted to the official, it is accompanied by a set of immunity from the central government, which has granted that piece of land. So, donor also gives a set of immunity to the donee, whereby usually it is mentioned that the royal troops will not enter into the area that has been given as land grant, and subsequently we find that even the administrative rights and judicial rights are also ceded. So, basically they become autonomous conclaves as such, free for all practical purposes from the central government, which has actually donated that piece of land to a particular person or to a particular official, and that could have led to some kind of an air of autonomy created by the donies on account of their own political aspirations and so forth. And that is what feudalism is all about in terms of parcelized sovereignty, in terms of the air of immunity, and also there are other aspects of feudalism. We should not merely understand that it is merely as a result of economic crisis and this political act of giving land grants, because there are social accompaniments, there are social factors which accompany this process, and the fact that urban centers are fast losing importance in terms of their contribution to the economy. There is this process of de-urbanization which is happening, and if you see what Fahian had to say, who visited India, Chinese visitor who visited India in the Gupta period, he gives a very good account of the flourishing cities of India in the Gupta period. But if you compare that with Wen Sang's account, who visited India much later in the 7th century, then, which is post-Gupta period, then his account of the cities of India is not that laudatory, and it appears that cities were not doing well. The iconic Patliputra is depicted as a very ordinary kind of settlement area, and the urban shining aspect of it was gone in the account of Wen Sang. So all these things, apart from several other archaeological evidences in its favor, that we shall discuss subsequently in my subsequent interaction with you, where I shall try to discuss the advent of medievalism in Indian history, and what are the arguments of different scholars related to it. So what is important for us with relation to Gupta period is that there is pan-Indian political presence, which is a break from the post-Mauryan times, which is a period of smaller polities. And but we should not be mistaken into believing that this was a direct replica of the Mauryan kind of administration, because we have seen through Samudragupta's Allahabad Prashasti and several other evidence also that this is more of a kind of plural kind of political arrangement, and it is not as centralized. So these are some of the takeaways from today's discussion, and when I meet you next, I shall try to pick it up from here, because that is in direct continuation to what we have discussed today with relation to the Guptas.
With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving your precious time as well as precious input to these lectures. And dear friends, if you want to give your feedback regarding this particular lecture, then you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in. We would be meeting again and would be discussing further. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.